Okay, record is on.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to a new webinar from the CRID Webinar Series. Today we have kind of a special topic and kind of a topic that we discussed for the first time in our webinars. We have Tobias Honey, who's a UK-born and trained architect, digital design professional, modular building expert, and tech platform creator with over 18 years of professional experience on projects across Europe, the Middle East, and China, residing in Dubai since 2013 and worked in several recognized professional companies before developing the MetaProps platform. Tobias believes that the future of architects shall become specialized in digital-only architecture design to supply companies and individuals with free interoperable environments. I would like to remind everyone who is attending today, if you have any questions, please type in your questions in the Q&A session or send your questions privately to me, and then I'll be directing all of these questions to our guests by the end of the talk. And I think that's all from my side, Tobias, for now, and then we're all looking forward to listening to you and attending this interesting talk.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. For this great platform that you guys have. It's an honor to present to you today, and I believe that it is an increasingly and very, in fact, present opportunity for architects to be involved in this digital architecture industry, which is kind of a strange thing to say. I know that architects generally do already design digitally, but usually the application of that is for real-life construction. So now is like I said, an industry which actually already exists. There are clients out there who are requesting digital architecture content for the purposes of being utilized inside different metaverse platforms. So I think particularly for your audience, predominantly, you know, you have lots of creative talent out there creating some fantastic things digitally, and often they enter into the real world and they become quite disillusioned with the daily utilitarian responsibilities that architects do have. And I understand that there are losses within the industry from young professionals who don't associate their creativity with that mundane work in the architecture world. Not to say that all architecture work is mundane, of course, but often it is. But what the metaverse does present as an opportunity is to allow your creativity to run completely wild. There are no limitations, perhaps from polygon counts and texture quantities for certain metaverse platforms, but otherwise your creativity is honestly the limit. And there is a significant lack of architectural expertise in this sector, whether it be just by process of the nature of the work. Most of this work is undertaken from those with game design backgrounds, game development backgrounds. But architectural expertise has unfortunately been a little bit late to this game, but increasingly speeding up. Personally, I've been noticing many new architectural practices that have been now dedicating themselves towards digital architecture creation, and actually a real opportunity for these platforms to make their mark within this new environment, and perhaps become household brand names, which other more established architectural firms are barely even understanding the concept of it. There are those that are coming straight out of university and setting up these practices and becoming quite successful. So certainly, I think for those that are listening, a great opportunity to at least begin exploring some of the opportunities. Whether you decide or not to pursue it is obviously down to the individual. But I think being aware of what these opportunities are is extremely important. So what I would like to do, I'd like to take everyone through a little bit of a journey. I have a presentation for you. And I'll share my screen shortly. Just to give you a bit of a background to the industry in general, maybe some scary acronyms. I don't want to scare people. I want to try and be as open and clear as I can be for those that haven't heard much about the industry. So if you just bear with me shortly, I'm just going to share my screen. So hopefully everyone can see that okay.
Yes, we all can see.
Perfect. Okay. So The platform itself that we're developing, which I'll do a live demonstration towards the end of the seminar, we are a dedicated digital architecture NFT marketplace and a build management tool similar to a blend of OpenSea, which I'll explain a bit more about later, and Fiverr or Upwork. Those two platforms I think would be familiar to most. So what we are looking to do is to give creatives the opportunity to sell their digital architecture as NFTs on our platform. And we'll go into more details about how that's done and why you want to do it this way. So some of you might not know the terminology of what an NFT is. So an NFT stands for a non-fungible token. And essentially what that is a digital asset which can be verified on the blockchain. And they can be singular images, they can be 3D models, they could be videos, any kind of digital asset can be an NFT in theory. Those of you who are familiar, you may have heard of the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs or the CryptoPunks. They've made kind of mainstream media. People may even own some NFTs, but that's not necessarily all what they are. Essentially, it's any digital asset, like I said. So these minted NFTs, once they're minted, they are on the blockchain, and then they are sold by marketplaces. And there are multiple marketplaces, and I'll take you through some of the existing ones and why ours is distinguished and specialized compared to those. And one of the major benefits of selling your creations in this way is that the original creators, once you've sold that asset on the primary market, if that asset is then sold on the secondary market, you will receive royalties for that. And so as things currently stand, if you were to issue your work as a WeTransfer file, receive a PayPal or a bank transfer, if that client wishes to then sell that asset onto a third party, you will not have any rights to any royalties to the resale of that item. Whereas if it's an NFT, that data is inbuilt into the smart contract, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So essentially the script for the transaction allows for a percentage of that sale to go back to the original creator. And that original creator name will always be associated with that digital asset, which that's quite often an issue amongst creatives, that our work is unfortunately miscredited, and some work can be used for nefarious purposes as well. And so having your name associated with those and having ownership over those digital assets, I think, is very important. And also the retention of copyright. So I hope that's clear. Obviously, no, I mean, of course, feel free to drop your questions, which hopefully by the end of the session, we'll be able to address some of them. So feel free to do that. So some of you may be familiar with the Mars House. The Mars House was the first digital architecture asset that was sold on the blockchain. That sold for $500,000 last year. So giving a use case and an example of what can be done. Of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but personally, I think we can all do probably a lot better than what you can see on screen. But that was purchased for that much, which is interesting. The blockchain, for those that who most of you would have heard of it. Perhaps a lot of you do understand it, but in summary, it is a series of blocks of information which are added to a chain, which cannot be reverse engineered or altered or deleted from that chain. So what NFTs are essentially a piece of digital information which has been added to a string of data. So on that blockchain, your asset can be verified as being legitimately from you and legitimately the only unique asset for this. So there's no way of duplicating that asset on the blockchain because it is verified. And that's another whole session about blockchain, and I'll move on. So there are current marketplaces that exist. Some of you, again, may be familiar with some of them. OpenSea, Rarible, SuperRare, LooksRare, to give a few examples. But these platforms, they do not allow for 3D assets to be sold in a way in which an architect would be happy with. You can sell GLB files, which is a 3D file format. You can sell that on OpenSea, but we all know that architecture projects are kind of complicated, multiple assets kind of combined together to form the overall project, which those platforms do not allow you to do. There is no allowance for any build management tool. So for example, if you did a project on behalf of a client and it took you perhaps 8 weeks to develop, you would have to have the trust in that client that he would pay for that asset at the end of the 8 weeks, and because there's no way of receiving an advance payment or milestone payments. There is no way that you can directly integrate those assets into Metaverse platforms currently, directly from the platform, and that is what we shall be doing in the second phase of our launch, which is important because Metaverse Land currently, when you upload 3D assets to those Metaverse platforms, and we'll go through different metaverses shortly as well, they are uploaded as Web 2 assets, non-NFTs. So essentially, those assets which sit on that land is not associated with you as a creator, and so they theoretically could be duplicated on multiple platforms and you wouldn't have any control over it. So having that direct integration to those Web3 NFT assets to those Metaverse plots is important, and as of yet not developed by any Metaverse platform. So we're in active talks with Metaverses right now to ensure that happens. And so there is generally a weak relationship between the Metaverse platforms themselves, the clients who purchase the land or the rights to use that digital space, and the creators themselves. So what we are trying to do as a platform is bridge the gap between these parties, since we believe that the most valuable assets in the Metaverse will be the 3D digital architecture content. So it's important that those relationships are strong. So what are some of the challenges for creators in this industry? So it is a problem at the moment that clients who wish to approach architects, digital architects, for new work, there is no way for them to actually post projects. There's no way for them to a forum from which for those people to find the necessary or qualified creators to work on them. So our platform will become a resource for clients to see and be able to have a collection of creators who are displaying their projects to view, and they can analyze those before they select a creator to work with. As previously mentioned, creators are not able to receive advance payments, milestone payments, or final payments, and you'll only receive payment on the successful transaction of the NFT with current platforms. And also as an issue with the clients not crediting creators with their work as it is. And generally speaking, unfortunately, within the industry, there is a lack of knowledge about what software tools to use, what metaverse platforms to build for, which I hope we can go through that a little bit today as well. So where we sit is essentially in the center between each of these entities to support all. Metaverse platforms are wanting to bring more clients and more interest in their software platforms. Creators want to create content. Clients want to try and find creators. At the moment, everyone's operating individually in a silo. And those clients who have purchased land in the metaverse, most of them are sitting empty. And that's firstly to do with a lack of understanding about what they've just purchased. Second of all, they don't know what to put on there or who to reach out to do it. So, we're trying to sort of bridge the gap between this sort of knowledge void, if you like. And there's a huge opportunity, in the merging of these three entities, these three parties, to actually drive the success of the metaverse, which is currently in a kind of interesting stage. There's lots of people trying to produce various things, and lots of people trialing. Of course, Mark Zuckerberg is pumping in billions every year into the development of the metaverse platform. But so far, I think there's been a disassociation of both the clients and the creators in that equation. So certainly huge opportunities ahead. So as I said before, the best way of describing us would be a mixture between OpenSea and Fiverr. That of course OpenSea is a generalist platform, but it's mostly good for JPEGs, not particularly good for 3D models. And there is a commission associated with it, which is relatively low because they don't gatekeep. There's a lot of issues with fraudulent content being uploaded regularly, and they constantly have to take down fraudulent accounts. Fiverr is fantastic if for a gig platform. They take a large percentage of the transactions. The assets are not sold as NFTs. So of course, as I mentioned earlier, the creators don't have any rights of the content once it's sold. And generally speaking, there is a premium to be part of Fiverr. So what we're sort of trying to do is be a blend between these two. Anyway, we'll move on. So what are the solutions? So what we're creating is a dedicated platform which caters towards this industry. We connect all the different stakeholders in this process, be it the platforms themselves, the clients and creators. What we're also allowing for is a job listing and build management tool. So looking after the whole process from the original inception of the design through to the execution of the work, and then the transference of the asset as an NFT at the end of the job. So the whole journey, what we're going to be looking after, and the direct integration of NFT assets, which I've already mentioned, and the varied use of the assets too. So they can be for sale, they could be for lease, there could be multiple copies of the same asset, and there's 2 different token types, which I won't get into the technical details. If there's a question about technical, we can maybe address that at the end. But there are different ways in which these assets can be used, and that's what we're allowing for. This is the Q2 numbers about NFTs. It's an extremely volatile market, and I think Q3 would be a little different from what you're seeing on the screen right now. But from what you can see, there's been an enormous eruption of interest in NFTs from essentially the beginning of 2021 till now, in enormous sort of atmospheric trajectory of interest and purchasing. You can imagine, prior to 2021, almost nothing. And it became $1 billion industry within a matter of 12 months. So it's very, very impressive. But these are just essentially cartoons. But we think the opportunities for different types of digital assets are huge. I mean, I think major brands now are starting to recognize all of this. You've got Nike, who are now pushing NFTs very hard. Even you've got car companies now looking into it, major luxury brands. There was a bit of news, so this late last year, Gucci sold a digital NFT of one of their handbags for more than what they would sell a real handbag for. So huge opportunities in the space for both retailers and for businesses and other uses. And we can talk about that a little bit later as well. So I think what is a metaverse? We've kind of covered a lot of that, but I think what I should do is go through a few different varieties of these platforms. And what I've done, I've kind of split them into 3 categories predominantly. The first one is an open metaverse world. So typically that would be Decentraland, Somnium Space, Sandbox. These are open digital worlds where the land is carved up into a number of plots, and those plots are sold independently. And then you have the opportunity to develop each one of those plots with whatever content you wish, with certain restrictions in polygon count, textures, heights, mass, that kind of thing, which obviously affects the computing power required to operate these worlds. There are limitations, of course, with that. And I think, as an architect, certainly I don't like to be limited with what I can create. So I think a lot of architects would be frustrated working in those environments, but necessary because of the existing infrastructure, sort of global cloud computing infrastructure that can process that many individuals being in a space in parallel. And so then you also have closed metaverse environments. So that would be some examples: Spatial.io, Mona Spaces, and Odyssey Stream. So what these aren't open worlds carved into a number of plots. These are individual spaces that are created, which they have the freedom of the width, the height, the texture maps, the texture sizes. All of these elements are open, and the architect has the chance to develop whatever space they like for whatever purpose they like, using that metaverse infrastructure to create the experience. So in this case, those metaverses, they earn their keep from selling correctly formatted assets for those environments. That's how they make their money. Open metaverses make their money through land sales. Closed metaverses make it through percentage of the creator's work. And then you have custom metaverse platforms. So these are built specifically for certain purposes. So these might be for particular businesses that want to have certain utilities and interoperabilities built into those platforms, which are very particular to their brand and very particular to the use. For example, it could be a university, and they want to have, you know, certain abilities for students to be able to interact with certain material within lecture theatres, for instance, which these other platforms wouldn't have. And so you would typically need to reach out to a developer that has the expertise to develop these sort of interoperable parts. And these are often game developers, and regularly using either Unity or Unreal Engine to develop those. And then as an architect, we would simply supply those digital architecture assets to create the environment from which those game developers can then overlay what are typically known as blueprints, which is the interoperability part of those spaces, and to essentially create these environments. And what it does, I think, I'm particularly interested in these custom metaverse environments, and I do believe that these are the future, that it is the immediate term future of these platforms, is that you can create, you know, movable, adaptable, dynamic digital architecture assets, which ordinarily as architects would rarely have the opportunity to be involved in. And it's really it's a perfect opportunity to let your imagination run wild. And if you can ever get involved in a custom metaverse project, that would be amazing. Okay, so why is the metaverse important? It is one of the fastest growing industries in the world. There is a current arms race between, you know, major technology companies around the world who are plunging billions per quarter into this. Mark Zuckerberg, again, famously funneling money into this, and he's getting a lot of flack for it. But I think overall, we will end up transitioning to this 3D internet, which is what most people describe the metaverse to be. So it's projected to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry, which is really exciting. I mean, this is coming from, you know, multiple major global consultancies around the world who are predicting the value of this. There's reports coming out frequently, and so being involved now, at least experimenting and producing assets and testing out the different metaverse platforms, will give you the best possible chance to start, you know, executing on some of the opportunities which may present themselves. And it's honestly, it's a surging market, and there's a very limited number of people who have the skill sets to produce this content. So we can go through this. I imagine this is probably one of the questions that are going to come about, you know, what software should we be using? So there are particular softwares which are important to learn in order to be able to create the content for these platforms, which we can discuss later. So I've mentioned some of these before. You know, Decentraland, Sandbox, they've all made the news. Cornerstone, which is more of a high fidelity open metaverse platform. So some of the main features which I'll take you through, actually I'll do a live demo perhaps after this presentation is done. So the main thing about us is that we have low gas fees because we're using the Polygon blockchain. So it's Ethereum currency on top of the Polygon network. It has extremely good filter tools to search particularly for digital architecture, because we're a specialist platform. There's going to be a 3D viewer built into the preview window, which is actually going to be in our phase 2. there's no file format restrictions. So currently with existing platforms, there is a restriction that you can only upload GLB assets. What we really are was zipped files. So they can be any file format which is contained within that file to be uploaded. And then we review all of the creators which upload profiles to the platform, so acting as a gatekeeper to prevent fraudulent content being uploaded. We're going to be having direct Metaverse integration of these assets via smart contract. There will be premium packages with platform perks for creators to be able to have better exposure to projects. These users can list those projects too. So clients can go on and they can post jobs of which then clients can then reach out and tender for. The build management tool will be managing payments, the scope and the deliverables of those projects. So again, from the inception through to the completion of the job, all those tools will be there, and there'll also be an arbitration tool built into that to make sure that those are following the terms and conditions from both sides, both client and creator side. And then the final transaction is made as an NFT via the advance payment in an escrow wallet. So I hope that's kind of clear. I hope everyone's still with me. Obviously, when I'm doing it online, I'm not able to get that direct feedback from anybody. So I hope that's so far clear. There'll be two sales journeys that run on the platform, which would be a typical, first of all, which would be simply a listing of an asset for sale. And those assets can be placed as by auction or by fixed price. And they could be also listed as a private sale or open. And then, of course, the client can go ahead and purchase those assets and then directly integrate them to metaverses, or just keep them as a digital collectible, or even use them for real-world construction. So it's not limited just to metaverse projects. These assets can be purchased for, they could be construction drawings, and you can sell your architecture projects in that way. So, and it's a way of guaranteed to get paid, because the asset will only be released once the payment's made. And that's how the smart contract technology works. The other way is to list the project on the platform, of which then the creators can then bid. And then the client would then select the creator they wish to work with. They go through a build management process throughout with milestone payments. And then the client can either choose to terminate the project early if there's an issue, or the creator can simply walk away too if the client's not fulfilling their obligations. But hopefully the project is satisfactorily delivered, and then that is then sold as an NFT at the end of the process. And so there's two different sales journeys on that. Revenue model, we'll kind of touch upon this lightly. There's sort of two ways in which money's made on the platform. You have the percentage which is applied to the sale of the NFT itself, and also a percentage which is added if the project is being delivered via a build management tool. And there's different perks for creators who are registering for the access to those listed projects, which we won't go through every single detail here, but essentially the more monthly amount you pay, the more opportunities you have to get access to more projects. So where we are at the moment, and actually I'll be able to show you a live demo shortly of this, but we are going to be launching very shortly. We have all the social set up and everything. That's all good to go. And just a few of the team members here. And this is our roadmap, which we're sort of generally hitting. So, I mean, yeah, we're just kind of going through all these deliverables at the moment, and we're very, very close. And what we'd like to do is actually create our headquarters in the metaverse. So that's one of our ideas, to create a sort of custom environment which we can operate from. We can host internal, external meetings, exhibitions, project launches, etc., all within an online environment, which would certainly be a lot more interesting than simply doing a call like this. As much as this is very cool itself, I think we could have a much more immersive experience if this was conducted within the metaverse. So that's one of our targets. And perhaps instead of showing you these, I can reshare the screen and I can give you a live demo. So I'm not sure if Mohammed, if we want to just pause there for a moment,
I think you can just keep going, and then once you just display everything, I think it's better to get all the questions at the end, because we may have questions for the platform as well.
Sure. Okay, then I will continue. All right. So I do hope this is smooth. This is currently on a test server, so there could be something which hicks up potentially, but I do think it should be fine. So what I'm going to do here is first of all, well, in fact, I'll just go through the homepage for a moment. So this is sort of typically what it's looking like. It's very similar to sort of OpenSea, if people are familiar to that. So we're sort of breaking sort of three main categories here, from sort of the marketplace, collections, creators, etc. So this is where all the content lives. We do special collections for certain assets. As a platform, we would basically collect some of the best assets for different typologies and arrange them into collections ourselves. There'd also be opportunity for creators to also assemble their own collections as well, but viewable within their profiles. And I'll just take you through that actually. So on the marketplace itself, it's sort of typically what you'd expect an NFT marketplace to look like. And then you have the opportunities to search by the sale type, price ranges, the creator type, and different custom properties, the typologies, for example, all the way through to the information type, drawing format, and whether it's built in real life or not, and whether you give the licensee the opportunity to construct the project or not. I'll just take you through that journey shortly. Again, these are the collections which can be, or which will be created from our side on the admin, and then creators. So this is just a test. This is not live at all yet. So forgive some of the imagery. And so this is one which I created earlier. And what I would do, this is the public profile, so you can see some NFTs listed there. So if I go ahead and connect, I will connect as a creator, and that's one of the key things that we distinguish between creators and clients or users. So that in this case, only creators can upload content. Users cannot upload NFTs because we gatekeep the creators, and we go through a verification process so that we're not producing, the platform is not producing lots of duplicate or fraudulent content. So I will connect as a creator, and of course I forgot to mention this initial part, which is having a MetaMask wallet, which would be important. There are multiple different wallets out there, digital wallets, but this is the one that's being integrated into the platform, is MetaMask. So once you're in here, I've already gone through the registration process and already approved on the back end, but you would first see this screen, and then you would fill in the various information, the employees, company staff, the links, social links, and you can go ahead and submit that. And on the back end, that would be approved. Then you can go ahead and you can add an NFT. So I'll just take you on a bit of a process there and show you what it's like. So I'm just going to Upload that. It should be relatively quick. So that's the preview for the blockchain, and then you can select as many of these images as you like. You can add in custom property, so I'll say Metaverse, call it decentralized, and then the typology, which in this case will be hospitality. Let's call this and then let's call it JLB file, GLTF file, so you can include as many files as you like. And that's Ethereum on the Polygon network, and you can add an external link. And then this will just be for digital, and it's a digital design project. And I've got one I've already made here called hospitality. And you can upload up to 1 gigabyte worth of digital files, and then you go ahead and submit, and then this becomes an NFT, which is then listed on your profile. It shouldn't take too long. Hopefully it's all working nicely. Yeah, here we go. So then, of course, once it's uploaded, you can then view it. These are the previews, the description. Here you've got some of the details, custom properties, and this will have, once it's live, the contents of the zip file listed here. And then you can go ahead and pick a sale. So let's call it a low amount for now. Let's call it 0.1. You can apply your royalty, which you'd like to receive, call it 5%, and go ahead and sell it. You need to sign in your digital wallet. Shouldn't take too long to sign. It usually comes up with a little notification here. And then you go ahead and sign it. And there you go. It's on the marketplace. So you go back to the marketplace and you see here it's listed for sale. So you can sell this on the open market. You can sell it as a private sale. But yeah, it's listed there now. And of course, someone else from outside can, search for this via any of the metadata which you're placing within this, and the typology that you gave it, the drawing format, can be found that way. And it will also be visible on your profile as well if someone wants to just search it, or if you want to share your profile, that could be done. And then you'll say, look, I've just uploaded an asset, a new asset, go check it out on my profile, and it'll be there. And then if I just flip out of this and I connect my user account and then connect as a user, which I already have one made here. And then as a user, I can go back into the marketplace, go ahead and buy the asset. And there we go. It should be nice and quick. Drum roll. Yeah, so that's sort of simply what the experience is.
Tobias, sorry to ask just a question while you are on the screen. So
yes.
when someone buys, let's say, a certain design, does it go off your market, or they can keep it to resell, or what happens once you buy?
Yeah, once it's purchased, if you go back to the marketplace, it's not there anymore, right? So it's off the market. But what you can do then is that if you wish to relist the asset for sale, you list the NFT for resale. And then you can go ahead and maybe you want to make money on it. So you do 0.2, and then you're relisting for sale.
Okay, so fantastic. And then the original creator will get an actual royalty for that?
Correct.
Fantastic. Okay, I see. Sorry to interrupt you. I just needed to ask that question. I'll come in later.
No problem. No problem. So yeah, that's really it. I hope that's been interesting. I know it's like a lot of information to take in a lot of perhaps like new terminologies, new ideas. I hope I can answer some of these questions.
Thank you, Tobias. Thanks for the talk. I think it was interesting enough and a lot of information, as you have mentioned. And luckily we have this recorded so everyone can get back to it at any time and just watch it again. We do have questions. Maybe we have one of the questions also listed already on the Q&A session. Or section says, who are the main clients for your digital architecture?
Very interesting. Right now, I would say the majority of clients are those with plots of land. They own plots of land in Decentraland, they own plots of land in Somnium, in Sandbox, and they may wish to create a like a play to earn type of concept. It might be they just want to have a shop. It might be an advertising board. It might be some sort of experience which is associated with their business. That's a lot of the work that happens. I mean, a lot of these brands actually have been kind of dipping their toes into different metaverse platforms. You know, every year, Decentraland has a Decentraland Fashion Week, and I personally participated developing some designs for Estee Lauder. They had a project in Decentraland for the Fashion Week. I think it's more symbolic that companies are kind of get involved in the metaverse. But then these companies have now realized that the functionality of some of these open metaverse platforms are not really suitable to their brand and their business activities. So it's becoming now more prevalent that companies are looking at developing customized metaverse environments, of which they can have all sorts of interoperability within those spaces and as they wish. You know, this goes from, you know, development companies who wish to create, you know, digital twins of their assets before they sell them. That's been around for a little while actually, but now that you have this kind of, you have Unreal Engine 5 and you have interoperability with the ability to, you know, change materials live as you're walking around. There's also a lot of educational institutions who are looking at kind of creating these environments to kind of outreach their opportunity to bring kind of more students into their ecosystem by creating these immersive experiences rather than just, you know, simply Zoom calls and digital, you know, assignments that you can given, something a lot more live and interactive. And I think that speaks to a lot of what you guys do as a unit there, which is great. And then also, you know, retail brands that want to create like another dimension to selling their products. You know, people who may be looking to buy a car, they might want to, you know, test that asset out digitally first, or they may wish to experience, you know, those, maybe a clothing asset three-dimensionally, or that might be able to attach onto their avatar so they can kind of see what it looks like wearing it. And there's so many different possibilities for how these brands and these businesses can use these metaverse spaces. But right now, to answer the question in a kind of long-winded way, I would say typically it's the open metaverse platforms which has the most requirement, let's say, for creators in the industry to create content. But I would say, as an architect, I would certainly look to learn Unity and Unreal Engine, because these are the two sort of game development engines which all these custom metaverse environments are being built on. So if you as an architect were able to create content for either one of those platforms, then you become, you know, those become valuable skills to help support some of these, let's say, more lucrative type metaverse projects which are available and are being executed as we speak.
Maybe the next question has two sides, if I may ask. The first side is, you mentioned that you're linking it in a way to an online wallet, which is the MetaMask wallet. But you know, there are other wallets, for example, such as Trust Wallet. Aren't you afraid that anything happens to this MetaMask wallet may affect the business you're doing or the website you're doing, or do you have the flexibility to switch to other wallets if anything happens to this wallet? Now, the other section or the other part of the question is, you know, NFTs are strongly linked to cryptocurrencies, and at the end of the day, they both of them are linked to the economy, and they have a lot of ups and downs during the year. So don't you think that this side may affect how people would view the whole thing in terms of doing architecture through NFTs?
Yes, I think there's sort of two parts to that question, right? So the first one, which is about the safety of a digital wallet. The difference between digital wallet and what's been happening in the media recently with FTX is quite different, because that's an exchange. So you don't actually have any ownership of that digital ID, that digital wallet. You've sent money essentially to a centralized platform, of which they then have the opportunity to do what they wish with those funds. And then the numbers on your screen are simply digits, which don't have any verification on any decentralized network. So that's why all these nefarious activities have been going on. But with a wallet, you have the ownership over that ID, that wallet ID. And MetaMask is just a facilitator of the transaction that's occurring with that wallet ID on that particular blockchain. So it's about as decentralized and some disconnected from nefarious human activities that can be. I mean, you're quite right. There could be that MetaMask has a problem. There's some bug on their back end. Yes, that can be the case, but that's honestly the case with any type of, electronic, piece of software. That can happen, but it's the safest way in which, I mean, really the safest way is the cold storage, right? The ledger. USBs, where it's completely offline. You can do that also, but it's the next best thing to have a digital wallet. So that's sort of the first part. The second part about it being connected to crypto, and it kind of generally having a bit of a bad name just because of the activities that have been happening. But a lot of people talk about regulations being a bad thing. I think you need some degree of regulation to hold those who are doing things actively bad in the industry to have the necessary punishments applied to them. Over-regulation is hard. There's always that balance between how do you between too much regulation, too little. I think there does need to be regulation, because otherwise, if there's zero regulation and they allow crypto to run wild, then you'll start seeing governments using the justification to implement central bank digital currencies. And not to sound hyperbolic, but central bank digital currencies will be the most horrific thing to ever occur to humanity if it's allowed to be executed in the way in which they say it will be, which is ultimately a complete control over all money and programmable money, which if the government don't particularly want anyone to spend money on a certain thing, they can switch that off. And it has potentially very interesting, positive benefits for that. But I would say there's far too much opportunity to do negative things with that power. So decentralized cryptocurrencies within an open, competitive marketplace is a much healthier way of operating, cross-network transactions. And I would argue even better than banks, because you're not having to deal with third parties. But definitely a mild level of regulation on decentralized cryptocurrencies is, I would say, a healthy and safe way of doing business. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, lovely. So from what I understood, that you get to connect to your MetaMask in a way, the MetaMask wallet. So you should have, or there's a connection. So what if for someone who is working with Trust Wallet as a digital wallet, will they still be able to kind of use your platform or use your website, or does it have to be MetaMask wallet only?
At the moment, it's just MetaMask, but we would like to introduce other wallets in the future, plus other blockchains too, because I think giving people the choice is a good thing. And one other comment, which I think is kind of connected to the wallet issue, is on and off ramping. So, of course, in order to be able to transact on the platform, you would need to have Ethereum in your digital wallet, and also some Matic for the gas fee. So how do people get their fiat money into their digital wallet? There's a lot of issues. A lot of banks don't allow you to use your money for cryptocurrencies, and you have to try and find ways in order to get it into your digital wallet. There are exchanges and other platforms which sort of help facilitate that process. But in order for people to be able to extract that money off the crypto into fiat and then vice versa, this is a challenge. There are businesses and banks out there who are providing that kind of service. And so what we would like to do, although we haven't done it yet, is to create that relationship between the digital and ability to off ramp into fiat. But yeah, that's work in progress.
Best of luck with that, because I see that's a big challenge, I think, to have it done. I think that's all from my side. George, do you have questions?
I have a few questions, if I may. First, thank you so much, Tobias. This is actually amazing to see that someone is really pushing into a market for architecture, and I personally just looking forward for it to become live. So I'll be maybe one of your first creator there. Personally, I have just a question about the architecture that I saw was what you presented, more reflected, real live architecture. Would you have a section that is dedicated to more of a virtual architecture that could go beyond, the norm of the conventional architectures that we see in the physical world?
Yeah, I'll absolutely encourage that. And I think it's essentially up to the creator how they wish to formulate their profile and the kind of imagery which they'd like to associate with it, and how they're describing it and how they're licensing it. So yeah, some of the examples that are provided, they are, let's say real world digital architecture representation of real world assets. But no, I think the more sci-fi, the more digitech kind of look, then cool. That's I mean, it might be that people have multiple profiles which cater to different markets. Maybe you don't want to overlap certain activities that you're doing. Maybe you are doing some real life projects which you want to have as an identity, and then you have another profile which is to do with more kind of metaverse sci-fi stuff. I mean, you can have it all under one creator if you wish. There's opportunities to create more than one, of course.
And as I understood, your the platform that you're creating can accommodate any type of files, correct? So it could be a 3D file, or it could be a 2D file, or any type of extension that could be uploaded there. So when the buyer buys it, he or she gets that exact extension of the file, correct? It's not the image of that file, but unless the image is being sold, then they get the image, correct?
Correct. So it's a compressed file. And within that compressed file, it could be, I mean, if you're, very, organized, perhaps there is a, cover title image, or there's a presentation, and then you have the raw assets, and you have like an instruction file, you have all, whatever, you think that the use of that asset may be, you can place within that compressed file multiple assets, multiple 3D assets. Could be that you create an asset for multiple metaverse platforms. So you have a file format which is suitable for Decentraland, a file format which is suitable for crypto voxels, etc. All within that same compressed file. Yeah.
Okay, Tobias, the million-dollar question. So when your platform, when do you predict your platform to be live? When are you predicting the date?
Wow, it keeps what I've noticed, it's given me a certain respect for anyone that's developing a technology platform, because nothing's ever straightforward. I mean, designing architecture is complicated because you have, the cladding, you've got the superstructure, you've got the MEP, and all this is complicated. But I mean, there are certain degrees of tolerance where, it doesn't have to be 100% coordinated and you can make it work. Whereas with technology, it's absolutely unforgiving. If you've got some sort of clash, conflict, corruption that happens on one line of code, essentially your whole platform breaks. So it has to be an extremely well-tuned engine. And so in order to get that going, it takes a lot of time. So I keep thinking it's like, 1 week away, 2 weeks away, and then just that
can you share with us at least one of the challenges that you came across while doing this?
I think, I'm very visual, and I think all architects are. So we put together, we've all used platforms like Wix or WordPress or something like that, and you just drag boxes around, and you make things look pretty, and all the interoperability is all there. But I assure you that all the technology that goes behind all that has been thousands and thousands of hours of people doing back-end coding work to make that a reality. So I think ultimately it's an appreciation of the back-end work that goes into the creation of these platforms, which has been the sort of the steepest learning curve for me. But the creative side, I think, would come naturally to those with an architecture education. But there is a certain challenge to keeping things simple, keeping things legible, whilst maintaining the functionality. It's just this kind of tough balance to strike, benchmarking against other similar platforms, seeing where they were, negative parts of what they've done, and or building some of the positives. This is essentially how any industry evolves, is working through what competitors have done and just trying to improve upon it. So I mean, as an architect, coming into this and doing this is been a huge challenge. But I think there's definitely a merit in those people with certain expertise outside of the industry coming in and trying to address, let's say, an industry issue, and I identified this issue in the market. And often you have tech developers working in a silo over here, and then those in the industry working over here. So bridging that gap requires like kind of like leap of faith from either side. Just happens to be that I've come from the architecture side and made that step across. So.
Okay, thank you so much, Tobias. These are my questions.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much again for the talk, and I think we have really a good content to view even later on online. So thank you for the talk, and we are all looking forward to having it online and maybe seeing what's the future of this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks very much. And actually, I'm looking forward to seeing lots of great content popping up. And that, I mean, literally, what's amazing about it is you don't necessarily have to have a client, right? You can just go ahead, create these amazing bits of content. It could even be, you're doing a university module, and you decide that you want to make that available for someone to purchase. Why not? And it gives everyone an opportunity. You don't have to be part of a brand or a business or anything. You're completely free and independent to start, creating and selling these assets as you like. And it's a great opportunity. I think it's a new revolution for creatives to have that direct connection with the consumer without having to work through a third party to do that. So yeah, look forward to seeing some cool stuff.
Tobias, has been an absolute pleasure having you actually today. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a good day. See you.
Bye-bye.